Hello, it's Kim from Sixpenny Memories. I'm just popping on to show you a very quick project that just uses scraps, and I really mean scraps. So this is a little project just getting ready for autumn. What you're going to require is some background fabric. I've used some Osnaburg, so around about a 12-inch square of that would be perfect. You then need a piece of the Vlieseline Thermolam. Now the Thermolam is a wadding, and you can get more information about the Thermolam on the Vlieseline UK YouTube channel. But this is what the Thermolam looks like. It is white, it looks like that. It's ideal to use. It's got thermal properties, so it's ideal to keep things hot and keep things cold. So you could use it in placemats, oven gloves, your ironing board, anything like that. But it's also brilliant to use for wall hangings because it lies perfectly straight. It's a little bit denser, but it just works brilliantly. What I also require is just some small pieces of fabric, and I mean really small pieces of fabric for the tree trunk and the leaves. Now what I've done there is I've used Bondaweb, the Vlieseline Bondaweb, which is a double-sided fusible paper. Now again, you know when you're doing those projects and you have the tiny little bits left over, I keep mine all in a little bag or a little box. And it's a perfect way because the leaves are so small. You can see here how tiny they are. They're literally just using the smallest of pieces. Now you can use whatever you like to hang this with, but this was an embroidery hoop that belonged to my nana, and it's been sitting looking at me, and it just makes a perfect frame. It's not cost me any money to frame it. I've popped this into a 10-inch frame. So once you get yourself ready with your Bondaweb, your scraps of fabric, you will need to download the PDF pattern which is attached to this video, and then you're ready to go. I have just done some hand sewing. You could do this on your machine as well. It's entirely up to you. So just enjoy the project, and please let us see what your finished projects and wall hangings look like. So one of the first things you're going to do is get your PDF pattern, which is of the tree, and if you notice there's just two of the leaves on here. You'll need some Vlieseline Bondaweb. Now the Bondaweb is a double-sided fusible product, and so you have a smooth side on one side, and this is the side that you're going to trace or draw, and on the other side is the rough side, and that's your first fusible side. Now I'm going to just draw out these leaves. You're going to trace the whole of the tree and cut that out roughly, and then you need around about 20, but you can have as many or as few as you like of the leaves, and it's a perfect way of using up some scraps. So what you're going to do is pop your Bondaweb with the smooth side facing you, and so just use any pencil that you want really. And you are just going to trace. I'm just using a mechanical pencil and trace the leaves. So we've got two leaves there. We'll just do two at the moment. Once you've done that, just move your PDF out of the way, and the first thing you're going to do is cut out the leaves roughly. And what I mean by roughly, it's just a little bit bigger than the drawn line, because you don't want to waste too much fabric. I'll just go around there in a circle. So all those little scraps of Bondaweb, you know, when you've done your other projects, this is a perfect scrap busting project. So I'm going to cut these out individually, or you can leave them grouped together. You may want several out of the same fabric. So I'll just cut that one out there. Get rid of that. And then when I'm talking about scraps of fabrics for the leaves, this is just perfect. These are literally scraps of autumnal tones that I have in one of my bags. So as I say, this is a fabulous scrap buster. Pop your leaves onto the reverse of your chosen fabrics, and then you need an iron. Now the iron needs to be at 2 dots, and what you're going to do is you're going to press and count to around about 5. Once you've counted to around about 5, then you can lift it off. Oops, it's just a little bit, just a bit small. You don't want to be ironing like this, you just want to press. And once we're happy with it being pressed, I'll just knock that iron off there. And what we're going to do is you're going to allow this to cool down. It feels quite warm to the touch, the Bondaweb, when you first start, but as I say, just allow it to cool down. Once it's cooled, you can then take your scissors and cut out exactly on the drawn line. So we'll just do that now. Now you're going to do that for the tree, and also, as I say, you need around about 20 different leaves to complete the project. Now you can make this wall hanging as large or as small as you want. It's around about an A4 size. So that's the leaves there. The next thing, to remove that Bondaweb paper, if you just grab something like a pin, a sharp pin, or alternatively, you could use a needle when you've changed your needles in your sewing machine and you don't have any further use for them. This is just an ideal way to recycle those. So we'll just pop that over there and we'll remove the backing, and you're going to do that on all of your leaves and on the tree trunk. So get rid of that, and then literally by scoring it, it just removes the paper very, very easily. Okay, I'm just going to put those to one side. Now if you've got a little container, because when I was doing the rest of them, they're very small and they can be quite fiddly, so just have yourself a little container, because there's nothing more frustrating than when you've cut all of these out and you think, where on earth are they? I've lost them. So the next thing that you need is some background fabric, and I actually had a small piece of background fabric. This is an Osnaburg fabric. So it's an open weave, it's cream, and it's got a little bit of a slubbing, but it's got that quite a primitive look. And you're going to lay out your tree trunk and your leaves, and I'm just going to pop a couple of extra ones on here. So as you see, it doesn't have to be overly precise where you pop them. So I'll have a red one there. You can just build this up. It's entirely up to you how you want it. Do we have that one there? No, don't like it there. So I might pop this one on this side. Okay, yeah, we'll have that one there because I feel like I've got a bit of a gap going on here. So just build it up. And my advice to you is, again, before you start an iron, get your iron back up to those 2 dots. Now, this small iron is really good because what you're able to do is just tip the top part of the iron onto these small parts of the leaves. Can you see? I'm just tipping it. And by doing that, just with the top end of the iron, it means I've secured those in place. The worry sometimes is if you put the big iron on, then the big iron can blow them around, or it can actually move them, and you don't want that to happen. So all I'm doing now is exactly what I did before, which is about count to 5. That's usually about enough. And once I've tipped all of the little leaves, which is a really good tip, then I am just pressing it into place. So your background fabric is, mine's roughly 14 by 12. It will be getting cut down eventually. But I just sometimes like to have it bigger because I want to keep this as a really simple project. I'm going to do some hand sewing on here because I just feel that it lends itself to it. Now, you've got all of these small leaves here. These all need to be stitched down. You could use your sewing machine and go around all of these. The tree also needs to be stitched down, or you could just do some hand stitching, which is in fact what I'm going to do. This is quite a nice slow project, and this ultimately could be framed or it could be hung on a wall. Now, once we've got that, the next thing that you're going to need is a piece of the Vlieseline Thermolam. Now, Thermolam is one of my most favourite waddings. It is so versatile. It is actually designed to have thermal qualities, so it will keep things warm and it'll keep things cool. So it's ideal for placemats, table runners, oven gloves, ironing board covers, anything like that. It's perfect to use in an embroidery machine because it just retains its shape, and it is amazing to use on a wall hanging because it's a little bit denser, but it actually allows you to have your wall hanging lying beautifully straight. So what I've done is I have a piece of Thermolam under there, And if your thermolam is just, you know, again, it's ideal to use scraps. You could piece your thermolam together. Once you've done that, then just lay it out. You can iron it, of course, as well, because remember, it's just got those thermal qualities. And on the back here, I've just found myself another, these are all offcuts that I had in my bag. I tend to keep everything, you know, if I'm doing a quilt. This has been a backing in its time, but it's the colours fit beautifully. It's got the reds and the golds of the autumn, but you could just pop on the reverse some calico. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to secure all 3 layers together, and you can do that in multiple ways. You could either tack it, you could use safety pins, or I'm just going to use very quickly a fabric glue, a fabric spray glue. When you're using the fabric spray, make sure you spray the wadding and not your project. So spray it, just lightly spray it, you don't need to go mad. And one of the questions that we were asked was, how easy can you hand quilt or hand sew through thermolam? In my opinion, you can sew very easily through it. What I would recommend is a slightly sharper needle. You could use a quilting needle, but if your thread is a little bit thicker, then consider using a sashiko needle, because they're a nice sharp needle. So I'm just going to pop a little bit of spray on the back of there. And then what it's now ready to do is to start sewing. Just get rid of any threads. Oops, just got a little bit of thread there. So I've got this line nice and flat here. And now I'm ready to start stitching and embellishing. Oops. So now I've got everything layered up. I've started to sew, and what I've chosen is some perlé cotton threads. So I've got a brown, which I'm just going to do the trunk with. I've got some reds, I've got some golds here. But in addition to the perlé threads, I may add in some other threads. I do have some speciality threads here, so I may add in a little bit of the gold. It's entirely up to you. There's some gold thread here, some orange thread here. I'm going to combine and I'm going to play. Now needle wise, I've just got myself a nice sharp needle, and I've had to go for a slightly bigger eye on this needle because this is a 16 perlé thread, so it isn't particularly thick. It's probably the equivalent of 2 strands of the embroidery thread, a stranded embroidery thread. And all I've literally done is I've threaded up probably about 16 inches of thread. I'm keeping it quite short here, and I am literally doing a running stitch. So I'm just pushing the needle down. It's going through all 3 layers here. You can just see, and it's going to be like a quilt as you go project. And I'm going to pop it back through this side here, and then literally just do a running stitch, and that running stitch is going to be all the way around every branch of the tree, and then with each of the leaves I'm going to do a running stitch around, and maybe on some of them I'll do some detail. So I will just carry on with this and then let you see how I'm getting on. I've now completed all of the embroidery. I've added some additional leaves on as well. So I did say around about 20. This is, you know, entirely up to you how you want to do it. Now, when I've finished with this, you could obviously add a border on and some hanging loops, but I have an embroidery frame. It's a 10-inch embroidery frame that I had lying around. It was when we cleared my nana's house out, and I've never known quite what to do with them. Because I do have a good selection of embroidery frames, but they make fabulous picture frames. So the way I've done it is, if I turn this over, is I've popped it into the embroidery frame, and to neaten it off, I've simply got a pair of sharp pinking scissors, and if you hold it upright and have the pinking scissors, so they literally have the blades of the scissors against the back of the hoop, and then I'm trimming it. So this will stop it fraying. Now, if you'd from the beginning fully intended to do this, you need not have put the backing fabric on. You could have just simply used the front fabric, which is the background for the tree, and the thermolam, and then of course you could cover the back of the hoop, the embroidery hoop, with some felt or some other fabric to hang it. I'm literally just going to find some ribbon that will be in the box. So you can see I've just neatened that. I'll just go to the scrap bag for later on. So I've just neatened the back of that, so that's not going to fray anymore. And then I've got myself a very quick, simple autumn project to hang up. It's ready to go. If you've enjoyed this and you want more information, then please do pop onto the Vlieseline UK Facebook page. Of course, there is also lots of information and projects on the Vlieseline YouTube channel. Bye bye.